Uh, Very good evening to everyone, those who are attending this webinar. On behalf of Aerolab, I welcome and invite Dr. Piyush Kapoor for this webinar. He will be presenting about, talking about a clinical management and surgical technique for successful outcomes of ROV Define. I will give you a brief introduction about Dr. Piyush Kapoor. He is one of the leading ophthalmologists in practicing in New Delhi. He is a director, chief surgeon in his hospital in Delhi, the Healing Touch Eye Care Center. He is known for his excellent phacoemulsification procedure, and he is known for refractive surgeries. He is a high volume surgeon, done close to, is doing close to approximately 5,000 surgeries in a year, which includes toric IOL, multifocal IOL, ICL, LASIK, and other advanced technical IOLs and procedures. So this webinar, Sir will take you brief about working of multifocal, how to select clinically successful multifocal, appropriate patient for a multifocal, and then how to get a good multifocal result. He will also share the experience about ROV Define, which is our Aerolab diffractive multifocal. So I think this session will be more interesting, and we will get to know in detail about the multifocal and ROV Define. We welcome you, sir. Over to Dr. Piyush Kapoor. Over to you, sir. You can.
Thank you. Thank you, Murthy, for the kind introduction you gave. I welcome everybody in this evening session on multifocal IOLs, and it's nice to present the technique in front of the surgeons internationally, especially from our guest from Kenya. Am I audible, Murthy?
Sir,
yes, sir.
You are
audible.
Sharing the screen.
Just to begin, I would say that as I term my specialty as cataract and refractive surgeon, most of the people coming down to me expect me to be a refractive surgeon as well as a cataract surgeon. So the word says that whosoever is coming for a cataract surgery, he actually wants that he should get a vision which is as good as he was about, say, 16 years old, that he wants to see distance, near, and everything. And generally with these kinds of expectations, I see my patients Are my slides visible, Murthy?
Not yet, sir. Can you make sir as a host, Saddam, or this?
Murthy sir, it is actually not necessary to make Dr. sir as a host. Being the panelist itself, he can do. He can share the PPT, sir.
Okay, sir. Can you try sharing the PPT?
Yeah, I'm just trying it. It actually says that host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Vinod, can you please change it, Vinod?
Screen sharing is not.
Yeah, ma'am. I have changed it.
Okay, you please change it and inform.
Yeah, ma'am. I have changed sir as a host. He can share the presentation now.
Sir, now you can start sharing the screen.
Just give me 2 minutes.
It's visible now, sir.
Is that now clear? Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
it is visible, sir.
So as I was saying, that cataract surgery has really evolved to be a refractive surgery, and we truly say a cataract refractive surgeon now. So the patients who come to us, they come with an expectation that probably they will get a glass-free vision and they would be able to see everything very clearly after the surgery. But the major limitation which I generally see in my patients, the unhappy faces which I generally get, are those when they say that, doctor, I was able to read prior to the surgery with a little nuclear sclerosis they have in their eye, but post surgery I am not able to see even my mobile phone. And that's why I feel that a need of a good technology and a good multifocal IOL, which gives us a vision for distance and near both, is the need of the hour. And we have to have a technology which where we can actually treat what is called as presbyopia. And when I look at it, I see that a general single focus lens can give us a vision only for distance, and this allows the patient to see clearly for distance. But when it comes to near vision, there are various options available. Either we counsel the patient that you have to have the reading glasses after the surgery, or we have some lucky patients who end up with a little myopic astigmatism with about a 1.5 or a 1.25 diopter at about 90 degrees, which helps them to adjust and get a 612 vision for distance and probably 6/8 all about N12 vision for near. The third approach is about the monovision, where we target the dominant eye for distance and the recessive eye for near by giving it a correction of about 2.5 to 3 diopters. But all these are basically just having their inherent limitations, that they cause loss of stereopsis, and it is really not very well accepted by most of the patients. Most of the patients which we tend to give a monovision are not very happy, especially in the initial phase, though later on they adjust and they might say that okay, they are fine with a monovision, but it does not give them a complete sense of satisfaction. And that's why I feel a good multifocal is the need which we have to provide to the patient. Coming down to the history, I would say the multifocal first implanted was by Dr. Joan in 1986, where he first implanted a bullseye lens. Now, the multifocal lenses, to be brief, are generally of two types. One is a refractive and the second is a diffractive. So these days, I feel that most of the surgeons who are in the webinar, they must not be aware of the refractive. Only the old generation ones are aware about, say, 10 years. If I just look back 10 years down the line, we had these refractive lenses which were first introduced, and then now these days they are hardly heard of, and mostly what we see are the diffractive lenses. So these refractive lenses had various zones in the lens actually, and they had a zone for intermediate vision, a zone for distance, and a zone for near. They were actually associated with a lot of glare because of the multiple foci present, and the patient used to have a lot of glare, which was a major limiting factor with these lenses. And then came the era of diffractive lenses, which were actually a pupil independent lenses, and they had two distinct foci, one for distance and the other for near. So
Sir,
these days,
sorry,
what we generally see for all,
sir, sorry for the
yeah,
introduction. I think this the screen is not the slides are not moving, sir. Can you? We are seeing the slide. The conventional IOL is a single focus device.
but what I can see that my slides are moving in this.
Murthy sir, it is moving actually, sir. It is not stuck.
Okay, okay, okay. Sorry, sir.
It is
Please go
okay,
ahead. Sorry,
okay,
sir. Sorry,
okay,
sir.
okay. Right. Thank you. So when we talk about the diffractive lenses, I was saying that the diffractive lenses has basically got two foci, one for distance and the other for near, and they tend to give us a vision where a distance and a near both can be adjusted. These lenses have the advantage over the refractive lenses that they are actually pupil independent. When in the era of the refractive lenses, we generally used to find out patients who had a pupil size of at least 2.5 to 3 millimeter, and only then the actual multifocality came into play. So how do these diffractive lenses work? Diffractive lenses has got fringes in their back of surface, and which gives rise to two distinct foci, and they give us a vision for distance as well as a near. Here is an animated diagram which I would be able to describe you how the physics of a diffractive multifocal lens actually goes. So when the straight rays of light come, they focus from the surface, and the light gets focused right onto the fovea for distance. Now these light with 100% distribution, they come down on the fovea in a monofocal lens. But when it's a diffractive multifocal lens, we get two images. The red images are the red rays are the foci which are actually giving a focus for near vision, which falls a little short of the fovea, a little in front of the fovea, and gives rise to the image for the near object. And the foci which exactly converges right on the fovea gives us the image for the distance. So this is the basic principle, and the light distribution varies, say, in various ratios depending upon the manufacturing of the lens, that it can give a 80-20 ratio, a 70-30 ratio, and so on. Further talking about the principle, the optics behind these lenses, the lenses actually work on the principle of diffraction, where we must have read in physics in the past that when the light rays bend through a small edge or a small hole, they tend to diffract. And this is the principle of diffraction, which is utilized in these lenses to actually work for multifocality. Now, the size of the fringes actually determine the type of diffraction we are aiming at. If the size of the fringe is small, the diffraction would be more, and if the size of the fringe is bigger, the diffraction would be less. The second terminology which commonly the surgeons tend to hear is apodization. What exactly this apodization is a term which was introduced after the introduction of the lens Restore by the company Alcon. Apodization is a technology in which the height of the fringes present on the surface of the lens can actually be varied, and thus we can calibrate or we can distribute the energy levels of the light coming for distance and near. In an unapodized lens, the fringes height in a diffractive surface are almost the same, and thus the image which we get has an equal distribution of light energy. That is, like, it would give a 50-50 ratio. But with an apodization, we can actually calibrate. If we increase the height of the fringes, then we tend to bend the rays more and converge it more for the near foci. And if the size of the fringe is less, it would actually go and fall at a distance. This apodization is the phenomenon which actually revolutionized the technology in the diffraction of diffractive lenses. So I'll show you a diagram of an unapodized lens where the size of the fringes which you see in the diagram remains the same from the center to the distance. So these are the size of the fringes. If you see the height, which remains the same at all the points. And once the step is the same energy is dissipated for distance as well as for near. So these are the unapodized lens, or the conventional or the old generation diffractive lenses. Then came the concept of apodization, where the step heights were actually calibrated and their heights were actually changed. The central one had a larger height and the distance one had a smaller height, as a result of which we could actually distribute the energy or the light which was falling for distance and near, and thus giving a better quality of vision, especially during the night hours in these patients. But when you just hear about it, you must be feeling that the technology is so simple, that we have these multifocal lenses which are giving a distance, a near, and everything. And do you really feel that it is so simple? The answer is no, my friend. It is theoretically, it may look very simple, but when it comes to the practical aspect, all this apotization and the diffraction and everything is associated with various problems. So if I say the answer was yes, then why not multifocal for all? And when I say the answer is no, that is the reason that it is not meant for everyone, and the patient selection and putting it in the right patient is the main key success for a cataract refractive surgeon to give a happy patient. So talking about the conventional or the traditional presbyopic lenses, I was saying that they all were associated with lot of glare, halos and everything. And these are the negative points of any multifocal, which limit the use of the multifocal. And that's why we have to be very selective and very cautious in using it for the right patient. So loss of contrast, glare and halos, and giving some discrete vision causes a need of an IOL, which actually decreases all these side effects to the minimum possible. But my friend, none has it all. So I would say still, I cannot 100% say that any lens can actually promise a, a vision without a contrast glass or a vision without any glare and halos. But we can, of course, by our technology, minimize these issues and give a happy patient with a multifocal vision. So understanding, like when I was a student, it was always a query in my mind that how do these halos actually come up? So this is a ray diagram, which I am again showing you, which shows a distribution of light for near and distance, and actually shows us the phenomenon, how these halos are created. There you see that when the light falls on the fovea, the light is not 100% light which is falling on the fovea. There is a light loss, which some energy being distributed for the near image. So these near images fall a little short of the fovea, a little in front of the fovea, like right here, and the light which crosses past the focus falls on the fovea and gives rise to the real halo, which looks like this. So this is what these patients generally have an issue of. The second issue which I was talking during the description of apodization was about the loss of image quality during the night, which gives rise to a lot of glare, and the quality of image which the patient sees is a little disturbed. But I say, my friend, that still, if you really understand the technology and you know how to use it, where to use it, you can beautifully use it. I have put this picture of my mother and myself. Just it was about 5 minutes before I took her up in the OT and implanted an Oro-Define lens in her eye. I was so confident with the technology. I was so confident on myself that I promised my mother that I would give you a spectacle-free vision. And here she was as a happy patient right in front of me. And she was the one who could actually describe that, yes, my son, there is a little halo, there are a little glare phenomenon, but I say that these are so less that I can easily overcome it and they are actually not disturbing. But at the same time, it is a major advantage that she is a doctor herself, that she could say that I could carry on most of my work comfortably without the need of glasses, especially writing the prescriptions, looking at her mobile phone, and at the same time seeing her patients comfortably. So when we talk about a successful surgeon, you need to be very careful in selecting the right patient for yourself. And my personal formula for selection of the right patient starts with the A, B, C, and D, making it a little simple. First, I look at the attitude of the patient, how complaining the patient is. Then I look at his astigmatism, that the astigmatism should always be less than 1 diopter. I need a perfect biometry for these patients. Then I see the type of cataract and I look for other pathologies which may not be actually causing a vision loss in these patients. So what I look forward for these patients is a happy, non-complaining, comfortable patient. And here is a Sardarji where I again implanted a multifocal, and he was so happy after having both the eye surgeries done that he especially came with his wife and said that I want to treat your entire staff And I'm so thankful that I have never seen such a good vision in so many years in the past. So you have to be confident in yourself. You have to understand the technology in the right way. And I am sure that if your patient selection is right, your surgery is good, you will never ever in your life come across an unhappy patient. My second point for A was astigmatism. I always look for patients less than 1 diopter, but now with the femto coming in my center, I even go up to about a 1.5, where by giving in an LRI, I can neutralize astigmatism of up to about a 1.5 diopter. I have sorry, two optical biometers with me. One is a LensStar and another is an IOL Master. And I do all my biometries in both the optical biometers. I compare and I have my own understanding of my equipment to get exactly the power which I require for my patient. In the patients whom I am not able to get a image from the optical biometer because of the dense cataract, it is a golden rule that all these patients undertake a immersion biometry and never ever a contact biometry at my center. I generally tend to avoid cataracts where I have a risk of a PC rent or any kind of a zonular dialysis. Though with the evolving confidence, I even tell a patient with posterior polar cataract that if there is no untoward incident, I would actually go ahead and implant a multifocal for you as well. But if at all there is any kind of a PC rupture or a PC dehiscence, there I would actually just implant a monofocal lens and never ever take a risk of a decentered multifocal IOL in any of my patients' eyes. We generally would want to avoid the pathologies like diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, ARMD, and all, where the patient already has a contrast loss, and I don't want to add on a contrast loss by implanting a lens which would actually compromise his vision further. The second thing which I would like to emphasize is about the angle kappa. Angle kappa is an important criteria which everybody must understand, that it should be less than 5 degrees. Angle kappa is the angle between the visual axis and the pupillary axis, and if it is more than a 5 degrees, then mind it, my friend, in spite of a proper surgery and everything, you may have a IOL which may be working as a decentered lens. So always avoid a patient who has a kappa more than 5 degrees. Astigmatism, I already emphasized, should be less than 1 diopter, because the residual astigmatism is the cause of trouble, and then never the patient will be happy if he has a residual astigmatism in his eye. I have also treated many patients who have come to me operated elsewhere with some residual refractive errors and all, and comfortably we do an excimer over these over the implanted multifocal lens, and we can actually overcome a post-operative refractive error also in these patients. The age which I generally look forward for is a 40 to 70 diopters, though I have stretched my age limits after understanding the technology, and I am even doing clear lens extraction for patients more than 35 diopters. Like recently, last week only, I operated upon a lady. She has one eye done, and next eye is due for the 24th of this month. She just had a hyperopia for distance, almost about a 2.5 diopter, and she came to me for a refractive surgery. But I told that it is better she goes in for a multifocal lens where I can promise her a distance and near both. So even clear lens extraction in patients with a good understanding about the lens and the technology is an option these days. So I disagree with the point of visually significant cataract, but for a newcomer or a surgeon who has just stepped into the practice of multifocal lens, I would say that this point also carries a meaning, that until you are confident about the technology, choose the patients who have a significant cataract, as once you operate upon their eye, they do not have those visual issues at all, because they actually are able to see quite clear after the removal of the cataract. So the glare and halos which are coming because of the multifocality might not cause them that much of a botheration, which as compared to a patient with a clear lens may complain of. Avoiding ocular pathologies is unsaid about, and any prior surgery like any RK, that is the radial keratotomy or a LASIK surgery, these are not the patients for multifocal, as they have already lost the asphericity of the cornea and their eye may behave in a different way. So pupil size was a factor with refractive lenses, but no more an issue with the diffractive lenses. But always avoid very small pupil patients because they might not be, the lens may not be functioning as good as compared to the normal pupil size. But now it should not be a major limiting factor in fact. So talking about in a broad spectrum way that the pre-op considerations I look at for these patients is that there has to be a strong desire. I don't sell a multifocal. I don't sell. I always put it as an option. Now I see that how the patient is keen about it. If the patient is an understanding one, he understands about the issues with it. He understands that if a little glare and all is there, he's ready to accept it. Then this is the strong candidate where I say that yes, he can go in for a multifocal. So never I would say that sell a multifocal. Always put it as an option. Let the patient inquire about the multifocality. Let him understand the physics behind it and then think of implanting the lens. Age unsaid about, I changed it from 40 to 35 to 75. Functional occupational requirements. Now, I would say that the patients who are more critical about, doing hobbies like painting, playing piano, playing cards and billiards, it's a boon for them. It's a boon for them because generally many ladies come to us who do not have, much of a visual requirement, but they have drivers to drive their car. They have some parties to attend, and they are into good social networking. So these are the ideal candidates, and I have, just to share on the lighter side, that I have a group of patients of such kind. A lady just got operated with the lens. She went and just showed off in her party, and there were 5 others following her that they also want a similar thing. She was a candidate whom I did a clear lens extraction. So it is again very important to recognize the occupation of the patient. I would always avoid in patients who are night drivers, who are very, finicky about their vision, they who want a very perfection in their vision or in their work. And I also ask their relatives about the nature of these patients. That I tend to ask them that I commonly ask the husband that about the wife, that how finicky your wife is about the dust in the room, how finicky is she about your bed sheet on the bed, that it should be very clean. If I see that the person is a little finicky about small things, I would never ever attempt to do a multifocal in him or her, but rather I would choose so happy-go-lucky patients with the attitude of a cool personality who would actually be my right candidates for it. Unsaid, it is to be avoided in the patients who have ocular pathologies like glaucoma and ARMD, and as the partial contrast loss would cause a major issue in these patients. So hypercritical or demanding patients, as I already mentioned, I would generally avoid. I would avoid a lady shouting at her husband most of the time. So by patients, I look that they should have a strong urge. They should actually have that feeling from inside that they are ready to adjust with a mild amount of glare and halos, but they want a life independent of glasses. They want a life where they can again read as they were able to read before they were 40 without the glasses. They can go about, they can do and work on all their hobbies in a comfortable way. So these are those patients with a positivity inside them, with the urge for having a spectacle independent life, actually, who are the ideal candidates for multifocal. Occupational night drivers, I already said that I would actually avoid, but at the same time, there are night drivers who actually don't feel that much of a glare if they are very well explained, well told about that slight amount of glare may persist, but as you tend to just overcome this glare or your mind learns to adapt to it, there is a phenomenon of neuroadaptation which would play for yourself and you will be very comfortable even driving at night, and it should not be an issue. Now, intraoperative issues where I would say that I would never put are about the zonular damage. If I have a torn capsular rhexis, a capsular rupture, or a vitreous loss, I would never ever put a multifocal in these patients. Astigmatism is a very important criteria, which I would say that every surgeon, every cataract surgeon implanting a multifocal should, again, I would emphasize that one should be very careful about. Always choose a patient less than 1 diopter. But if you have an access to LRIs and you are commonly into the practice of using LRIs and all, you can do it, but target that your patient after the surgery should not have a residual astigmatism in whatsoever way. The residual astigmatism has to be less than 1, or by, I would rather say that it should be less than a 0.5 or max up to about a 0.75, not more than that. Accurate biometry is the key to success of a successful multifocal implant and a happy patient. My friend, only one point I target and only one thing I look, even in a finicky patient, is that I want a perfect emetropia. If I get a emetropia, sooner or later, my patient is bound to be happy after a multifocal implant. But if I have a residual error, there can be issues. So accurate biometry is a must. I would strongly recommend that an optical biometer should be in place for in a practice where you are thinking to start a multifocal lens, or you are wanting to practice a multifocal lens. But if you don't have an optical biometer, never ever think of a contact biometry. At least an immersion biometry is a must. In my days, when I started the multifocal implantations, I didn't have an access to optical biometry, and I started with an immersion biometry. Though I was near accurate, but with an introduction of an optical biometry, I could actually achieve that bang on 100%. So power calculation is again an important issue. Like, you must know how to and what formula to select for what patient you are looking forward. And my choice is mostly the Barrett and the Hill RVF available with my Lenstar. And as I said, I always get a double or a triple cross check done in these patients of multifocal or a premium IOL practice, where I do the biometry on my Lenstar as well as an IOL master. And now I know that which par and when to select. A good surgical technique is undoubtedly required. Your surgery should be 100% reproducible one. Once you have that kind of a confidence, only then step into the field of premium cataract practice, because it is a right surgery which would determine the success. You have to have a perfectly centered round capsular axis so that your lens does not get displaced, it should not get decentered, and it should give you a perfect vision which you desire of. So this is my recently done patient, which I did yesterday. And today also I did a implantation with an Aurodefine, and my assistant was asking, Doctor, today also you want to record it? So I said, no, today you can just be relaxed. I recorded it yesterday. This was the patient. I have a femto, but in this patient I was not doing a femto surgery. I did a conventional MICS, but my aim was to get a rhexis which was about a 5.5 millimeter, and it should be near round and a perfect centered one. And somehow I feel that in phacoemulsification, not a single step, but every step counts. After having completed my phacoemulsification, I tend to polish the capsule and removing every small molecule of the cortex lying behind. The best thing I love in Aurodefine is the preloaded lens. It comes in a preloaded cartridge. You can appreciate the rings. I tend to just override the trailing haptics, close the cartridge, and push the plunger forward. And this is the anterior plunger, which would just be pushed backwards to put the leading haptic onto the optic. So when you see that the lens enters, it goes beautifully and comfortably. It opens beautifully, and you can see the magic. I never tend to touch the rings because this is the sensitive part where I feel that none of my instruments should actually fall or touch or compress the rings of apodization, which may not spoil the optics even at a micro level. So I hydrated, I am hydrating the incision, and you can appreciate the rings. And mind it, my friend, this was a myopic patient. She has a bilateral myopia of, and the lens power was about a 10 diopter. But having evolved and seen happy patients, I select patients of all sorts. So this was in my myopic patient, a multifocal Orodyfine implanted. So my fancy, the Orodyfine lens, I would just describe about that. Actually, I was doing a very little of multifocal in my practice till I received a few lenses from Orolab, and they said that they wanted me to evaluate these lenses. Actually, having access on my of about 20-24 lenses suddenly in my inventory, I thought that okay, I'll go ahead and I'll just use them. And with the first implant only, my confidence level rose so high that now in my practice, I'm almost doing about 20%, nearly 20% of the patients with a multifocal implant. And I'm so confident that a major chunk of these multifocal implants is clear lens extraction. So talking about the the Orodyfine lens is a hydrophobic lens. Hydrophobic is always my choice because most of the patients, I 100% almost implant a hydrophobic, whether it is a monofocal or it's a multifocal, and it has a diffractive optic design with an aspheric optic. The asphericity is the beauty of the lens, which gives rise to a better contrast by neutralizing the positive vibrations of the cornea and thus getting a good contrast in spite of a multifocal. So when we look at the design, there is a central bump which works for the distance and the intermediate. Then is the zone of apodization, which has the diffractive rings all around, which gives the real multifocality. And the last portion, which is the outer refractive portion, which does not have any rings in it. Now, this apodization and the refractive rim all around is the main key that these patients do not have a contrast loss, especially in the night vision. They feel as comfortable in the daylight as in the night, and they will never ever come to you saying that they have any issues in the night, whether a glare or a halo. Talking about how the apodization actually distributes the energy is very well shown in this graph. You can see that when the pupil size is small, the light distribution is almost equal for distance and near. And as the pupil size is increasing from 3 millimeter going up to about a 5 millimeter, this is the graph representing the Oroview and comparing it with the Technis multifocal design and a Restore. So this gives you that the distribution in a Orodyfine almost remains at 70% at a large pupil for distance and about a 20%, nearly 20% for near, so which actually contributes to a clear image quality even in the mesopic pupil with a large pupil diameter. So this is the major advantage in the Orodyfine design. The second major advantage which I see in these patients is that there is a very good intermediate vision. Now, in the present era, I feel that intermediate vision is the most important thing. Like presently, I am sitting on the laptop and you guys are all also seeing your computer screen. This is the intermediate vision and your phone, which all the patients are mostly looking forward for. And I actually feel that most of the patients or most of the individuals these days in the present modern era are actually wanting the near vision, which is about, say, I would say about 20% of the work, and 80% would actually be an intermediate vision, which they are looking forward for. So this is a very important thing, that they actually want a very clear intermediate vision. In many of the lenses, like if you talk about the Technis plus 4 diopter, the patient gets a very good near vision, but he lacks that intermediate vision, and that's why that patient is always unhappy with the fact that though he can read, but when it comes to reading at a distance, the vision is lost. This is not a case with an Aurodefine. And I personally, with having implanted most of the lens available today in the country, whether it is trifocal, whether it is pan optics and all, I feel that all these patients are actually wanting a good distance, a good comfortable intermediate vision, and reasonably good near vision. Even if my patient is not able to read the newspaper, I care a damn about it. I say that when you have to look into those such fine prints, even if you need the aid of a +1 diopter on your eye, bloody hell, you can use it. But when it comes to a good intermediate vision, that is the main thing which my patient wants always. That if he has to look at the mobile, or he has to look at the screen of the computer, there he should be comfortable. And this is what Aurodefine actually promises. So this is again, the slide again describes about the advantage with these lenses, that it gives a perfect vision for distance, a very good intermediate vision, and of course a very good near vision as well. Just giving a comparative chart between Alcon, the Johnson & Johnson's now, which is the Technis, and the Aurodefine. The energy distribution at 3 millimeter, which was seen in the Alcon, was about a 59% or a nearly 60% for distance, and about a 25.5% for near. With a multifocal from J&J, that is the Technis, was about a 40 and 40, and with an Aurodefine is about 50 and 30, which is practically the most comfortable one. Now in this 50, the distance is quite good, the intermediate is very nice, and the near is very comfortable. So add powers which are available in the zones is about a +3, with 11 zones distributed in about a 4 millimeter diameter on the lens. It's a true performance lens. It gives you a distance vision which is near 6.6 without a compromise, a near vision N6 which is close to a very comfortable reading. But yes, I would say that when it is a very fine print, very fine, less than a N6, I would say that even if a patient requires a +1, I just don't bother about that. And a very good intermediate vision, which is the main key. The real working distance, what the patient practically wants, is attained with these lenses. It gives an enhanced color perception because of the negative aspheric optics, which neutralize the aberrations coming from the cornea, and thus giving a better image quality, better color perception, and a bright, clear vision. A spectacle independence, as I said that for intermediate and near vision, the patient is absolutely comfortable, and the post-operative outcome is really desirable and giving a satisfaction to my patient as well as myself. Color perception, as I already said, the lens comes in the preloaded design like this. This is the cartridge. I'm holding the lens, and it is there is no exposure to the environment. What I mean is that generally when the lens is not a preloaded one, there is a tendency that when we hold it with our instrument, we tend to just compress the optics, and at some micro levels, these apodizations or the steps get damaged. So either if you are implanting a multifocal lens which does not come in a preloaded cartridge, always I advise my colleagues to hold it from the optic haptic junction rather than damaging the optic from by holding it from the center. And if you have an access to a lens which comes in the preloaded cartridge, it's the best option. So this was my personal experience, which I just had a study at my center checking about 210 eyes, though nearly I have implanted more than a 500 Oro-defined lenses till now. And in this, I saw that on day one, most of my patients, a good number of them were 6/9 or better. And by the day 15th, almost nearly 100% were 6/12 better, and about more than a 95% were 6/9 and better. All these patients had a very good near vision. Most of them, like about 60 of them out of 130 patients were having a N6 or better. 60 had about N9 or better, and only 10 had about an N12 or better. And these also are the patients that if you just tend to push them, because if you just tend to ask them to understand that where your focus lies, you bring the object near or take it a little far and understand where your focus lies with the lens, they also reach a mark of N6 very soon. So undoubtedly, it gives a very good vision, but with a binocular implant, it gives a further better vision that almost 100% patients tend to be N6 for near and a 6/6 for distance. Glare and halos, though I said that none of the multifocals can claim that they are free from glare and halos, but the glare and halos in this are significantly low. Almost about 120 patients said that they do not appreciate anything in spite of a constant pestering on them that you see it or not. And 90 of them said that yes, they can appreciate, but the significance of these glare and halos was not much and they could be comfortably avoided. So this was the ratio for a visually significant halos which I got in my patients. Overall, most of the patients were very happy, but there were a few who still wanted it better. They wanted a better near vision, and in these patients, I could always play a trick that after implanting a eye lens in one eye, I can go in for a micro vision in micro monovision for the other eye by taking it a little myopic if they want it better for near, or asking them to use glasses of a +1 diopter just for doing the very fine print which they want. And when I asked my patients that what do they want for their second eye, 100% of the patients wanted the same lens, none backing out that they don't want a lens of this kind. So overall, I would say that Oro-defined lens is a very promising multifocal with an excellent visual acuity for far and near and intermediate distance. Oro-defined gives a good spectacle independence with a minimal photopic phenomenon. And if I tell you that you don't pester your patient or don't ask them again and again, most of the patients never even complain that they don't see any issue and they are very comfortable with the lens. And the satisfaction rate with these patients is very high. With this, I would end my slides, thanking Aurolab for giving me this opportunity, and I would open the session asking Murthy to just allow if anybody has any questions to ask on this. Can you just take off the screen sharing?
Thank you so much for your nice presentation, sir. We have one question from Dr. Kibata. Like, how do you measure angle kappa in your practice? That's the question asked by Dr. Kibata.
See, we have this topolizer Vario with us, and on topolizer Vario and a pentacam we can measure angle kappa. But with the present scenario, these days we are not very particular about the angle kappa, and most of these patients, like even if they are like a grossly hypermetropic patients, may have a large angle kappa, but otherwise 99% of the patients you should not or you must not order with the present scenario.
So we don't have any other questions other than this, sir. Thank you so much for your presentation, sir. I think this is a very useful presentation for surgeon who wants to practice or introduce multifocal IOL or who have doubt in Arabic-defined. This is in a way give an in-depth analysis or in-depth detail about what has to be seen for us clinically, intraoperatively, what is the biometry that has to be taken care, and how Define have helped you making more happy patient. And this is the high confident for as you have implanted to your mother. So that's a kind of it's a pride for Aerolab. So thank you so much, sir, for this informative and very useful presentation. I hope everybody who have attended this session will have got enough information about multifocal. And in case if you have any question, we will. Yes, there is another question. Do you do this under tropical or LA? The same question from Dr. Kibata.
I do it all under topical anesthesia until and unless I have a mature cataract. There, I generally prefer to give a little block, if because the patient may be a little uncooperative and the lenticular pressure may be high. So otherwise, most of the surgeries I do under topical anesthesia.
Okay. Thanks for that question, sir. So thank you once again, sir. So like I said, any question you can always post to us so that we can ask from Dr. Piyush Kapoor, and then we will get back to your answer that with the answers. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again for all the participants.
Thank you. Thank you, Aerolab, for giving this opportunity, and it was really a lovely session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. ठीक है, थोड़ी तो